I'll let Roland Martin introduce our esteemed panelists, but we have some celebrities in the audience.
Yes, we do.
Let me give a shout out to William Gator Bradley, one of the original OGs from Chicago, keeping peace in the streets right now. We also have Sister Claudette Muhammad representing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We have State Senator Eddie Melton from Indiana, Gary, Indiana. We have Representatives Greg Porter, Cherish Pryor, and Robin Shackelford as well. Got to give a shout out to Team Carson, our chief, and Omer for helping to put this together along with the Hip Hop Caucus. Hailing all the way from Brooklyn, son, word is bond, peace God, is the lady herself, the scholar, the queen, co-signed by the streets, co-signed internationally. I remember I had some heat about 10 years ago. She organized a meeting in Brooklyn. I had to face 200 Palestinians by myself with some of my Arab friends. And I saw this sister named Sister Linda Sarsour who said, don't worry about it, Dre, they're going to give you some heat, but we got your back until we straighten this out. She's a real one. We have a sister who is a civil rights activist tackling issues like mass incarceration, gender equality, and community policing. Give it up for Carmen Perez. We have another sister who's yet to be here. She's the founder of Mallory Consulting, which has led multiple flagship projects for companies and organizations with a special focus on African American outreach. Give it up for Tamika Mallory. We have one of the most underrated lyricists. When they talk about lyricism and wordplay, he's an activist. He has credibility because he's been on both sides. He's been incarcerated and he's been out in the streets trying to stop brothers from going to jail. Give it up for social activist and rapper, My Son. And ladies, if you're in the mood for some R&B, if you're in the mood to get uplifted mentally, if you're in the mood to become more engaged with music as it's transforming, being a part of this renaissance, you got to give it up for the great Raheem DeVaughn. But what you don't know is that he's a part of a supergroup with a powerful poet, an enigmatic poet. His name is Wes Felton. Give it up for Wes Felton. One of the brothers who helped us get this movement going from day one. He's my A1 from day one. He's the general. He's the head of the Hip Hop Caucus. He's my brother, but you know him as Reverend Yearwood. Give it up for Reverend Yearwood. And my sister from another mister. She is the first African-American congresswoman and woman from the state of Delaware. Keep your eye on her. She's a rising star, Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester. And right now, I want to bring up somebody who is a big brother, an uncle. He's a prolific journalist. He speaks truth to power. He keeps it real, and he can cut a rug on a dance floor, and he's always clean. Give it up for your host, Roland Martin.
All right. So how we doing? Now, I was listening to everything Congressman had to say. And he started by saying, Roland's going to introduce the panel. His chief of staff said, the Congress is going to bring you up and you're going to introduce the panel. Here's the names, here's everybody, and I went, okay, no problem. And I'm standing there and I'm going, is it like a second panel? I was looking for the second panel, but I appreciate that because he went ahead and already handled that. So how y'all doing?
All right.
All right then. So the first question I want to ask is, who was on this panel last year? Raise your hand. Okay. Now, if y'all recall last year, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, I think this is the 5th year, something like that I've done this. I don't like any of these panels where we just talk, where we just sort of do this. I always believe in homework and assignments. So we're going to begin this panel with each person who was here last year. I need to know in 120 seconds what we talked about last year. What did you accomplish in the last 364 days? As well as what we talked about, because that will also frame what we talk about, because I need everybody here to understand this room is always packed, and I believe it is a waste of time to have conversation and then you don't come back to report what you did based upon what we talked about last year. So, Linda, you can go ahead and start with that in terms of sharing with folks what you accomplished last year based upon what we talked about.
Just a little something since last year. So folks know that New York was one of only 2 states where 16-year-olds were convicted as adults. So since you met us last year, New York has passed the Raise the Age bill and raised the age of convictions to 18. And that was a big deal in New York City, impacting about 200,000 young people. Since last year, myself and 2 of my sisters who are on this panel, Tamika Mallory and Carmen Perez, and many other folks in this room, including Janae Ingram and folks in the front, Bree and others, we organized the largest single-day protest in U.S. history.
Oh, no. Oh, hell no. She just said 4 sisters of color organized the largest. Oh, hell no. The largest in American history. Why are some sisters still sitting down? Why are some women still sitting down? She said the largest in American history. I'm still confused why some of y'all are sitting down. The largest mass demonstration in U.S. history. Now, Linda, before you go on, there's a reason. Okay, Linda, you're going to finish your point here. But let me admonish some folks in here. You don't put together the largest demonstration in history just on Twitter. That was organization, that was planning, that was strategy. And then when all of those folks met, all of those women, they also left with a 10-point plan to do the next 100 days, and they've still been organizing. Now, this generation cannot talk about how important hip-hop is, and we talk about the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, and Selma, and Birmingham, and Albany, Georgia, and the Nashville movement, all of those movements, and pay the respects when we have present-day leaders who are walking in the same footsteps of Ella Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Constance Baster Mockley, Dr. King, Hosea Williams, Andrew Young, and then we don't show our appreciation. They put in the work. So let me say it one last time. They organized. Linda was there. Carmen was there. Tamika was there. The largest mass protest in American history. Linda, go ahead.
So I just want to take folks' permission for a second, because you just like triggered something in me right now. And the reason why I say that is because when we were organizing the Women's March on Washington, a lot of black people in particular, and people from the communities that I come from, didn't want to get down with the Women's March. They were like, we ain't trying to organize, y'all out here with these white ladies. We don't want to get down with the white ladies. And what I was telling people is that the white ladies would have still had a march without you. And they would have still figured out how to bring millions of people in the street that were introduced to racism and xenophobia and all that by Donald Trump. But what we did is we took one for the team, and we went in there because those women would have put out an agenda without us, and our issues would not have been at that table. And what we did is we created a policy agenda and a program that included all of us, and that also included hip hop. We also, I was the lead fundraiser for the Women's March on Washington. And one of the things and the conditions that I put on my participation was no money from corporations, and I don't want nobody from philanthropy with their money on that protest. So people said, oh, you just outright crazy. Like, you're not going to be able to do this. Guess what? $4 million for the Women's March on Washington, and not one corporate dollar in that march. So what we did was, when we went as women of color to the Women's March, we didn't ask for a seat at the table. That's not our mission is not a seat at the table. We got a lot of people with seats at the table, and a lot of people that have seats but aren't leveraging their power with the seats that they have. We wanted to be at the center of the table. And we said if we were not going to be at the center of the table and our people weren't going to be at the center of the table, we wanted nothing to do with that Women's March. And guess what happened? We did get that seat at the table, and we got to sit on the table, and we got to center our people, and we got to put the mothers of the movement on that stage. We got to put black women and black trans women on that stage. We got to put Muslims on that stage and undocumented people on that stage. And that's what happens when we go into these places, we intervene, we make sure that our voices are heard, and when we're not heard, we keep on making sure that our voices are louder and louder and louder until people hear us. They said we were divisive. We were talking about race. Just to be clear, that wasn't by accident. Those conversations about race that we were having were by design, because the reason why we had November 9th was because we don't talk about race in this country. So we want you to know that that what happens at the Women's March ain't what you saw on January 21st. It was the tears. It was the frustration. It was the late nights at night when we had to explain to people why our lives matter, why black lives matter, and why we needed to be centered in that Women's March. So we want you to know we took one for the team, and it wasn't easy. And we hope that you saw the fruits of our labor as we advocated on behalf of all of us.
So I'm going to go next to Carmen, and Linda said I triggered something in her. That response triggered something in me because this is where also, when I was saying, sisters, why you sitting down, this is where also brothers come in. And the three of them can tell you. When we were at the March on Washington, the 20th anniversary, I pulled all three of them aside, and I said, and let me explain something to y'all. I said, I'm going to use every platform I have to elevate the three of you. Now, when I call you, you need to be there. When I call you to be on radio, I don't want to hear I'm busy. All three of y'all ain't busy at the same time. I said for television, same thing. Now, why? And there were some other activists who were upset, like, why you keep elevating them? I'm like, because I know they are doing the work. And when Linda said about the tears and stuff along those lines, I recall the phone calls talking with the three of them when they were going through this stuff. And the reason that would trigger that lack of proper applause is because the point of this panel is to talk about the work and how to encourage our folks when they do the work. And our people cannot bear the pain, the agony, and the frustration, and then we don't show them the proper love. That's why that matters, because sometimes when other folk don't say thank you, when your people say thank you, it means a heck of a whole lot more. Carmen Perez.
I just want to add to what Linda said. We organized that march in 10 weeks. And we were actually tired because, you know, you talking about where were we coming from? I remember coming from California to this panel and actually going back to California because we were in the middle of organizing a 3-day juvenile justice conference called Growing Up Lockdown, and 2 concerts, one inside a juvenile prison and one outside for the community, which we tore apart, which was so off the chain because we were able to also highlight Ventura County, which nobody had ever heard of, as a model in the nation for restorative justice.
That's right.
And so I was tired when I came back to New York City because we had just built and expanded to California, calling it Justice League California. And I thought I was gonna take a nap and do some strategy sessions with my people. But then I got a call, and I got a call 2 days after they had posted that people were gonna be marching on Washington. I think they were calling it the Million Women's March, erasing the work that had happened in Philadelphia 20 years prior. So it was important that we were there. And so it took us 10 weeks to organize. My role within the march was to bring together coalition and partners. We brought on over 500 partners within 10 weeks. Linda and myself also produced a process for people to create the policy platform that was called the most radical platform in the history of any march. And also to make sure that we were grounded in an ideology which was Kingian nonviolence. So we housed, as the Gathering for Justice and Justice League NYC, not only did we give our team to the Women's March, but we also housed it under our organization that was founded by Harry Belafonte. We raised the age through Justice League NYC, which we had been working on that campaign for I don't know how many years. We also organized a march from the NRA to the DOJ recently. We up against white men with guns.
They were there.
I mean, I can't go there because I practice nonviolence. We organized a coalition to bail out a young man who was wrongfully accused of attempted murder. And his name was Pedro Hernandez. So we were contacted. His mom, he had been incarcerated at Rikers for over a year and was being beaten, placed in rooms and being beaten by staff. And so we were able to organize a coalition with Sean King. Within a week, we bailed him out $250,000, and he is now, all the charges have been dismissed because we have revealed some corruption in the Bronx.
That's right.
And so now what we're looking at is making sure he gets to college in January.
All right, that's it. So before I go to Tamika Reverend Yearwood, I know Raheem has to leave because of a commitment. So Raheem, the question I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask everybody else later, is what's next? What do you want the folks sitting in this room to do after they take this information, take this knowledge? What do you want them to do over the next 364 days?
We gotta hold ourselves accountable for following through. I think, we have great conversations, we create great dialogue, but we have to follow through. It's as simple as when you give somebody a contact or a number, and you say, hey, I'm gonna get you next week, we have to follow through. It's not going to get done unless we follow through. We're in a period of time, been in a period of time for a very long time, for decades, for years, for centuries, where ain't nobody gonna come save us. We gotta save ourselves. You know what I mean?
And what you've done is, of course, folks should know about your romantic music, but you have a new project that is all about consciousness.
Yeah.
You can't make love 24 hours a day.
You can't make love 24 hours, yeah.
You got to put some other work in. So speak about that new project and why it matters.
The art and the culture and the music, the music is part of the movement. Like, don't get it twisted. Imagine a world with no music, no melodies, no songs, no inspiration. So there's a lot of people out here making music on a frequency I call it a death frequency. You know what I mean? And whether I'm making songs for the bedroom or me and Wes, collectively we call ourselves the Crossroads. We just dropped an album today. It's called Footprints on the Moon. It's an album that if you're black or white or whatever, and you down for the culture and peace and preservation on this planet, there's a lot going on.
It's completely digital. So let me ask you for a free CD.
I encourage you to get the album, man. iTunes, Spotify, all of that. We're number 10 on iTunes right now. We're literally,
y'all can clap on that.
Radio play, what have you, But we have to recognize that the new millennials, a lot of them, the ones we trying to reach, like they in a trance and they sleepwalking. It's like it's a hypnosis. You know what I mean? Like they in tune with the Pied Piper of death. You know what I'm saying? So it's for all our wars. So we have to really be in tune with the fact that when we come together, it's what we do when we're apart. We do a lot of shows with a live band with musicians, right? And one thing that we constantly tell our musicians in our band is like, it's not what makes us dope on stage. It's not what we do when we come together. It's the homework you do and the following through and the execution you do when you out on your own.
Now, Raheem has to go. Wes is staying, correct?
Yes.
But you ain't leaving unless y'all give about 120 seconds of something from your new album.
Oh man, check this out. We got the 4/5 Max and Tex. We got the blood spilling in the street. I said we trying to hold on to the first, yeah. The babies need something to eat. My other bro just came home. My other bro just went in. His newborn son will be about 30 something. If you see the streets again, well, turn to God for religion. Ask my grandma to pray. All I want is to see 25 birthdays. There's a target on our backs. We bought in to the lies. In the air, I can feel it. Bow your head, close your eyes. I'm praying prayers. Praying, oh yeah. I'm praying prayers. But like me and Wes say, right? Like me and Wes say, right? You gotta remember this. Regardless of your faith, who you worship, who you praise, right? Prayer without action, you can finish it, is what?
Is blasphemy. Prayer without action is blasphemy. So we suffer from selective morality, and you know, I even speak on it where we say, dear Father, I come to you at this moment as a humble soldier, eye to eye with my opponents. Half don't know or acknowledge your components. They don't read your word, even if they own it. It's declaration on a bookshelf to them, or a terror dome map that they want to ruin. Some pray to the remains. Shout outs to YU and them. God bless the babies in between schooling them. As a child, I would grow, not doing what was told. Grandma kept me focused with the prayers that she sowed. I pray for the dope boys plotting and employing, crooked politicians building and destroying. Father, forgive me for all my bad choices. Misunderstood, always raising my voices. Cause this free will make brothers feel voiceless. But yea, though I walk through the valley of this poison, I'm gonna pray.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Raheem DeVaughn. Tamika, I'm starting this off with the folks who were on this panel last year and asking what did they accomplish in the last 364 days from what we talked about last year. So Linda shared, Carmen shared. If you can speak on that as well.
Well, thank you, first of all, Roland, and to all of you who are here at this panel today. And thank you all for that amazing feeling that you gave us. I know I felt really moved. Running around CBC is always like a mindless activity sometimes. And just stopping here to see other black folks appreciate you for the work that you're doing is really powerful. Carmen said everything that we did, and she should have left at least one thing for me to claim, because she named all the stuff that we did between Raise the Age and the NRA protest, which, you know, definitely we were up against something that we've never seen before, but we knew it was out there in terms of being up against the real beast. It was out there that day while we were walking 18 miles from the NRA headquarters to Washington, D.C. Obviously, we've been standing up for Colin Kaepernick. I don't know if you mentioned that.
We're about to talk about it.
Right. Organizing around that. And so I don't want to go back and try to repeat what Carmen and Linda have already said. I think that even just knowing that we organized the largest mass mobilization and still haven't had a nap since then is enough for all of y'all to feel really sorry for our feet, our minds, our bodies, and our souls. And meanwhile, we still work with white people every day. So pray for us as much as you can, because it is definitely difficult. And then, yeah, and my son said something that is so important. One of the things that I did do is send a young black man to Morehouse College this year, my son. So, and so the only piece that I want to make sure that I mention, but so that I don't forget, or two things, is one, how do we get it done, right? Because we always talk about what we've done and we don't necessarily give people the tools that they need to do it in their own communities. And so there is someone in the room who's been with us through everything that we mentioned, all the things that Carmen has laid out. There has been a brother who is in our city council in New York that is in this room, and that is Councilman Jumaane Williams, who's walked with us. Thank you, Jumaane. Please stand up so folks can see you. And Assemblyman Michael Blake and others have done the same. And the reason why that is important is because we are not people just in the streets protesting with no concept around how to move policy. So when people tell you that, they're telling you the lies they tell, right? Because we sent people to the council and the assembly and the state senate and other places to ensure that when we're marching, they're moving it along inside of the buildings that need to move so that policy actually shifts. So we have not just been protesting without ensuring that there is some fruits of the labor that our people can actually look at. And no, none of it is perfect. Raise the Age is not perfect. But at the end of the day, no one was trying to change. In New York City, we were sisterly, brotherly, whatever you want to call it, to North Carolina in terms of the criminal age of responsibility being 16 and 17. And so when you look at the Kalief Browder story, that is what he was under. He was in a state, New York, supposed to be the most liberal state, and in some ways we're the most racist state because we have all the liberal elements and we're not using it at all. We hate the word progressive because there's no such thing as progressive in a state where you can still charge 16-year-olds for possibly stealing a book bag, put them in Rikers Island for over 2 years, and have a young man who was unable to enter society properly, and he ended up committing suicide. That is what we're dealing with in our state. And even now, under the governor, who is supposed to be so liberal, he ensured that there was still a clause in the current Raise the Age legislation that says that your records will be open for 10 years if you get in trouble when you're 16 years old. So we still have a lot of work to do. But what I want you brothers and sisters to know is that we never stopped working. We were working before, we've been working during, we continue to work after. We are on the ground at all levels and all the time.
All right, that's it.
And then the last thing I will say is because they say give folks their flowers while they're alive, and I want to say to my brother Roland Martin, if it were not for Roland, there were times when actually most of y'all that's in this room were not listening to us, and Roland was like, I'm going to not only put you on a platform, but I'm gonna check you if you're not saying the right things and tell you what books to read and tell you what information you need in order to bring the message across properly. And but wait, before y'all dang, I didn't even get a chance to finish. But wait a minute, let me just say this to y'all real quick. And the thing is, Roland, and I just left an event where I was acknowledged, which is why I was late here. Let me apologize for that. I was acknowledged by TV One and Alabama Power. And TV One, if you don't know, was founded by Kathy Hughes, who's a woman who slept in her car with her son, Alfred Liggins, in order to build that network. And people don't always give Roland Martin and black networks the attention and the respect that they deserve. But I can tell you that when we were down and out and couldn't figure out how, before the Women's March, before we had this major platform and brand, when we were walking from New York City to Washington, D.C., over 250 miles with other organizations saying they wouldn't support us, they would not stand with us, people who look like us wouldn't support us, Roland has been there. So I just want to publicly say to you, Roland, thank you for holding us accountable. Thank you for being our brother. We love you, we support you, and you the bomb.com.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I did not see the congressman at the end of the table. That's my homie.
You already know what it is.
Thank you so much.
Come
love
on,
you,
Queen.
brother.
Love you,
So
love you too, Queen.
this wasn't planned. So before I go to Reverend Yearwood, my phone rung and I didn't realize I had my speaker on. Whenever he calls, I have to answer. And when you talk about mobilization, you talk about somebody who is actually doing the work. What Reverend Dr. William Barber has been doing has been amazing. So I don't know why he called me, but I said, you're going to have to say something to all these young folks sitting in here.
Absolutely.
So, Reverend Barber, I know you organized the Poor People's Campaign. Y'all had 1,000 folks in L.A., 52,000 people on the phone. And so I know you're a preacher and a Baptist preacher. But you got 2 minutes to talk to these folks, to say something. Do what you do.
Well, Don, first of all, thank you. And I'm Baptist and Pentecostal, so that you know that's a mix. But first of all, let's give it up for Roland for all the work he does. When he told me it was young folk on the line, I was moved. I'm trying to get on a plane with the Eskimos, the indigenous people, and Native Americans in Alaska, because we got to bring everybody to the table. I called you because I just heard that Senator McCain said he was going to vote no on this crazy repeal of the health care. Just say this as a pastor and as a clergy person to my young brothers and sisters. It was a young David that took on Goliath, and he won. It was a young Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego that took on Nebuchadnezzar, who was a tower-building egomaniac that wanted people to bow down to him, and they won. It was a young Jesus that took on Caesar. It was a young Martin, a young Malcolm, a young Diane Nash, a young Frederick Douglass that took on the systems of injustice and won. And so the reality today is you not only have a place, you must be in the place, because your energy, your intellect, and your inspiration must take on the systems of injustice today, whether it's systemic racism, systemic poverty, whether it's ecological devastation, and even this war economy. Your generation has a place, as young people had a place in the part, and you are not the leaders of the future, you are the leaders of right now. And if I could drop it like my boy Tupac, I know it's a setup, but keep your head up, because things are going to get better if you never refuse to stop fighting. God bless you all, and take care.
All right, Reverend Barber, appreciate it.
That was powerful, Roland. To Tamika's point, every year during the gala portion of the CBC FALC weekend, we issue the Phoenix Awards to 1 or 2 recipients. A new concept has happened. In addition to the traditional awards that are given out, members can identify folks on their symposiums or forums to give the award to. And we selected Roland Martin this year, to Tamika's point. So thank you, Roland.
I ain't know that.
Now, being that we've already paid for the award, we're still dealing with black folks. It's not.
It ain't here.
But it's on the way. So thank you, Roland. We appreciate
Black
you.
Award
We
is
love you.
late arriving.
Still late. Revolution is here, but the award is not.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Congressman. I appreciate it. Reverend Yearwood, conversation last year. What did you and your organization do the last 364 days?
Well, I'm just glad to be here. I'm just glad to be here on so many levels. That's actually a victory in itself. I want to thank all of you for being here. And my son, Tamika, Carmen, Linda, definitely Congressman Carson, Roland, thank y'all for it was a battle. So let me explain just that. That's when I have a couple assignments that we did. That's the first one. As many of you may or may not know, is that we spoke up last year to challenge. First of all, I love the Congressional Black Caucus members, and I love this gathering. But what I didn't love was the fact that we were taking money from the prison industrial complex and from the fossil fuel industry. And so when I spoke up about that, there was many folks, I guess, I don't know if it was blackball or I guess I was Kaepernicked in some ways, and so it was hard, and there were many folks who I didn't think would have us back, and they were upset. And they came actually at Congressman Carson hard, I mean, like really, really hard. And then I'm sure they came at my other comrades up here as well. So that either I wouldn't be here, but they said if Rev's not here, then we not gonna be here. And so where you being here, you're showing that to all of us, that's important. And I just wanna say why that's important. When I went to, after Katrina led a march against those who stopped our people on the Crescent City Connection Bridge, and our people died on that bridge after Hurricane Katrina. I went there and led a march. I never forget that I asked my own brothers who were Christian if they would come because my life was threatened. People said it was going to kill me if we walked across that bridge and all that kind of nonsense. And so I asked folks who were Christian, and they were like, no, they told me I had to be more wise, I had to be wisdom, and all this kind of stuff. And I never forget when I got off that plane by myself, a couple of days after, it was a couple of days after Hurricane Katrina. I was like, man, I'm probably gonna die. And there's a few brothers there floating hip hop. But what met me at the airport was Minister Farrakhan sent a whole bunch of brothers. When I got off, and I don't know how their suits were so nice in New Orleans. I don't know how that happened. Wasn't no dry clean, wasn't no power in New Orleans. But they had on and I don't know how they got to the airport actually. But they was there waiting for me. And I just want to say that, and when I saw that, I said to myself, these are my brothers. Now, I don't know, I know about God, I know about Jesus, but God, these are my brothers because they were willing to die for me. And I didn't even know their names, and they were willing to die for me because the minister said, you show up there with Reverend Yearwood. So I say that because then I know that when Congressman Carson came into office, him and Keith Ellison were the only two Muslim brothers. A lot of the progressives who stood down and sometimes didn't really support and let other sides put their names to the mud. I know I was there, so I'm so glad that he was here. But I had this assignment, so let me just get into that regarding that. So a letter was written, and Keith Ellison, our other Muslim brother in Congress, sent a letter to CBC on behalf of our request of looking into how we could divest from anything that hurts our communities. So we're waiting on that from Congressman Keith Ellison's office in that aspect. When I came here actually, man, I came here last year literally from the Standing Rock reservation was there, which was itself a battle. And, there was some lagging on that. And, the current president, quote unquote, green lit that process. But then we didn't stop there. And one of the things that we did is that we reached out to our brothers in the industry, like Wes and my son and Raheem and others, and they actually recorded a song, an anthem called Stand Up, Standing Rock. And we did it. We said, well, we're just going to do this song, and we're going to go and make it happen. And so Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas did the song, and that song won a VMA award. The other thing in that process that we were talking about was regarding Flint. We have a situation where when the cameras leave, sometimes people's leave, and so issues regarding Ferguson or Baltimore or in Flint, we stayed there in that regard, and people were arrested and charged for the crimes against our people in Flint. And then the last thing, and there are really two last things in that process. One of the things we was brought up because we were the Hip Hop Caucus was that we talked about how we can get folks who are of excellence to come on to the caucus. In other words, how could we hire people and bring people into the caucus? The caucus has grown tremendously, and so we wanted to bring people in, and we talked about that. And I made this statement. I said, well, nobody who's high level gonna come to the caucus. And Roland said, that ain't true, Rev. If you put the plate together, you can get some high level folks to come to the caucus. Well, he was right. And one of the things there, when he left the EPA, he had 25 years of service, was in charge of the Environmental Justice Department, not for the EPA, but for the entire federal government. And when he resigned courageously, not wanting to follow behind Scott Pruitt, he could have went to any one of those green groups. I went to him and said, hey, would you want to work for this little hip hop caucus? And Mustafa Ali is standing right there. Came on over and chose that. And then the last thing that we did was that we talked about artists and the community, and we, in our Los Angeles office, created a studio where artists can come and they can record music from the beginning to the end, free of charge, so they can create conscious music. So that's a high price. So we allowed a system, we're able to raise resources and create a 3-story facility in Los Angeles downtown. in which now we can utilize for our own conferences. We're actually hosting the indigenous and frontline communities in that aspect at the next Friday, as well as artists like My Son and the Siri X and D1, so they can come into the studio and not worry about studio fees, and other artists like over here, they can be in Los Angeles in that process. We have one of the top flight studios in America, and that you can come in there and record conscious music in that aspect.
All right.
And then finally, the last thing is that today, on that aspect, Anthony Smith and Jeremiah created a song called Here Comes the Sun. My site is on today. And on that aspect, it released today. And the proceeds from that song, so please go to iTunes, Spotify, and download Here Comes the Sun by Anthony Smith and Jeremiah. Those proceeds will be going to helping our people regarding Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Harvey. Thank
All
you.
right, folks. Now, just like in church, raise your hand if there's an empty seat next to you, please. Raise your hand. If you are standing up, we have all of these seats available, so please, you can take one of these seats. My son, I want to now go to you. Okay. What's next? A couple of things have happened. The NFL asked Jay-Z to perform at the Super Bowl. He told them no.
That's right.
We just, for all of the folks, and I was dealing with folks on my show today on this, who are saying, well, these NFL players, they have no agenda, they have no plan. What's the ask? You've got 4 NFL players who have sent Roger Goodell a very detailed letter in terms of what they want the NFL to do, have a whole month dedicated to social activism. What's next for folks? From your perspective, what should individuals here be focused on, working on, mobilizing, organizing about?
Well, thank you for asking that question, Roland.
Can we close that back door, please? Because that's a lot of noise coming in. Go ahead.
In regards to Colin Kaepernick, I've been very vocal on my social media. If you follow me, you know I'm very vocal about it. And a lot of times we ask artists, athletes, people in position to speak up on behalf of things that go wrong with us, on behalf of injustices. And when you look at Colin Kaepernick and you look at the lack of support, I mean real support, not say it's wrong, but people willing to make a sacrifice to get up and say, look, I won't support the NFL if this man is not hired. When you look at that lack, then you understand why people in positions don't want to put their life on the line, because you have all these people that sit there and say it's wrong, but you don't have nobody denouncing and saying, look, I'm just not watching the NFL. Just like I appreciate Jay-Z for not performing at the Super Bowl, but the reality is he didn't tell us why.
Precisely.
You know, we're making assumptions. Everyone is making assumptions and saying Jay-Z didn't perform. Maybe he didn't like the way they treated Beyonce. Maybe they didn't offer him enough money. But we make an assumption that he didn't do it for Colin Kaepernick. But you got to call out. You got to stand up there and say, until y'all do some things that represent our communities, 70% of us play in the NFL, and until there is a system in place that where you speak up on behalf of our issues, that you're not blackballed and you're not losing your jobs, I can't support that. We need people in this room, not only people, you know, we need us to do it. And then again, we have to stand behind. Like, you know, we all know, like I was talking to Tamika, and we talk to people who are in contact with Colin, and he doesn't want nobody to think he's a hero. He's not doing for no glistening. Why he not talking? Because it's not about him. But it does pain him when you see that you take a stand for something that we all should say this is the right thing to do. He did what was the right thing to do, and notice that people like us can't even stop watching a damn football game. Right. Like, I mean, if a man is willing to sacrifice his life and you cannot watch a football game so that ensures that our people are not dying in the street, then what is he sacrificing his life for? Right. You know, if all these people that want to say, Dag is messed up, the NFL need quarterbacks and this and that, but you're not going to denounce and say, well, I have over 10 million followers, so I'm going to let them know that I'm not watching the NFL. I'm not going to go out there and buy no merchandise for the NFL. I'm taking the NFL channel off my TV until these things are reckoned with. So that's what we got to do. We can't support people in silence and behind closed doors and say it's messed up. You got to be willing to sacrifice. If you look at what happened to Rosa Parks, if everybody would just say, well, it's messed up with her, we just going to get on the bus still, then we would still be, this is like we got to have real conversations. We got to have real conversations. So that's what it is for me. It's for me, I'm tired of the silent support. I don't need the silent support. I don't need you to tell me I'm doing a good thing, but you're not going to go out there and say it to the people that matter, to let the world know that you stand with me.
Wes, I'm gonna throw this out to Wes, and any panelists can jump in on this. I'm using the Kaepernick NFL, these 4 players, as the focal point, but it also speaks to a lot of other things along those lines. What they are doing is what I call the inside game. Yeah. But there's never been an effective inside game unless there's an outside game. And it's interesting because when the rally was organized at the NFL, I had talked to several folks on this panel. They know we talk all the time. I call other people as well. And my question was, is there a central organizing body? Is there an entity that is external that is leading the effort? And folks said, let's see how folks respond after that march, after that rally. And so what's interesting is this, I see different individuals, this person over here, this person over here, but where's that centralized force that is an external force that can put the pressure on the NFL, not just to sign Colin Kaepernick, but to address those critical issues? That, to me, I think, is a missing piece. The Women's March could not have been successful unless there was strategy, organization, infrastructure. And I think a lot of times we miss that. So for you to speak to that, but also the what's next.
Well, I think that our country suffers from what I like to call selective morality. So often we'll say that certain things offend us, but then if it's out of sight, out of mind, we take that for granted. In one of my writings, I even say, we're offended by flags and words like fag, but got the nerve to walk around wearing Redskin swag. I say that, I say that, and hopefully I didn't offend anybody, and hopefully maybe I did offend some people, but I say that because so often I think we take for granted the power of the people. Okay, the concept of power to the people has, it often gets a negative connotation. But I think what's next, especially as far as the NFL situation is that we have to develop a greater dependency on each other versus the powers that be all the time. Because it goes beyond the NFL. It goes to Budweiser. It goes to Oldsmobile. It goes to whoever, the various companies and organizations that make a lot of money through advertising on NFL Sunday and on NFL Thursdays, but they never do anything to give back to our community. Not to hate on athletes, not to hate on celebrities, because I'm an artist and I do hope people help and support what Raheem and I are trying to do, but it's time for us to stop fattening the pockets of these Negroes who don't care nothing about other Negroes. I think that just like my son, just like he just mentioned, it's that selective morality. How do we know that Jay-Z really actually cared when he made that decision? And what's unfortunate is that we often project a certain level of consciousness and a certain level of progressiveness on people simply because we're fans of them, rather than us seeking out the artists, the athletes, the companies that actually put in the purpose of the people behind what it is that they do. So that is actually, for me, the next option, the next step, but that's also what I try to do myself as an artist, and also as a father. I have a 14-year-old son. He's caught up in the crap. He's grown up around all these great artists and that are very eclectic and very conscious and progressive, but I catch him listening to some of the mumble and all that crap, and I say to myself, man, you ain't grow up under that, right? But what I realize is that he looks at me the same way that we often look at these companies and these corporations and these reporters, unlike our brother Roland, where it's like we just become talking heads, and it's almost kind of say, do what I say, but not as I do. And it's time again for us as a community, as a country, as a people to, again, reinsert the power back to the people, because you got 1.2 million people that still live in the world that don't even have lights. You understand? But they're the people in the same communities who is through slave trade are going in their homes in the countries that they're from and grabbing the raw materials that are used for the technology that we reap the benefits from.
Yep.
And it's until we really care about people as far as the human race, I think that we still will fall into it. And I'll say this lastly, it's a broke down journey that the slave trade started. Civil rights movement working their hardest. The colored water fountain, now we shopping at Target. The crack ain't kill us, now the music is the product. So we gotta stop, we gotta stop, we gotta stop, we gotta stop, we gotta stop supporting these artists out here, these rappers out here, these singers out here who are, who do nothing but perpetuate toxic masculinity. They perpetuate hate, self-hate amongst themselves. And I can't blame them, because I'm an artist and I want to be able to provide for my family and my son. And so I can't hate on them, but what I do hate is when I see people complain about their children dying at the hands of black on black crime, and our sisters being raped at these parties, and these sisters setting up sisters and brothers setting up brothers. And at the end of the day, we won't as a collective just stand up and say, you know what, enough.
I want to go to Carmen next, and we're going to take questions as well. But for the balance of this, I really, really want us to focus in a very deep way on mobilizing, organizing, strategy, infrastructure. Carmen, go ahead.
So first of all, I want to recognize our other national co-chair that's here with us, Bob Bland. She was the white girl that also took one for the team.
You got to stand up.
Stand up, Bob. Yeah. She built with us, and there's also some folks here that were some of the organizers for the Women's March, and I also want to just say we appreciate all of you. I'm a good friend to Colin Kaepernick, and I speak to him frequently, as well as his girlfriend Nessa, and I know that one of the things, like my son said, is that he does not want to be at the center of any of this. This is larger than Colin. This is about a culture that has existed that actually has been founded on the oppression of others, right? But I also speak to people like Abdullah Muhammad, right? Some former NFL players that are wanting to play the outside game, that know the culture of the NFL. I also speak to people like Michael Bennett, who was recently, he was held at gunpoint in Las Vegas. And so for us, it's trying to identify what we can do. For me, one of the things that I'm able to do and work with Colin with is distributing the $1 million back into communities that work on police brutality, that work on criminal justice reform, as well as, he supports the Gathering for Justice financially. A lot of the work that we do, as you see, we are 3 women. The women on my team are all volunteers. Justice League is made up of volunteers. And so he supports the actual work that we're able to do by allowing us to have what we call revolutionary reels, where we bring people together through film. Last night we had an event celebrating the 12-year anniversary of the Gathering for Justice, where I moderated a panel with our founder, Harry Belafonte, and he is mentoring artists. And he's talking to P. Diddy. He's talking to Jay-Z. I went to Jay-Z's concert the other night. I kind of slipped away from work. And he dedicated, and it was actually work, because I got re-inspired to come out even harder, because he dedicated his concert to Colin Kaepernick and to Dick Gregory. He talked about Dick Gregory and his activism and how it was never recognized, right? And so what Mr. B talked to me about last night, or talked to a lot of us about, is the fact that we have to meet people where they're at. and champion them to our cause. And he's talking to the Diddies that have all this money, but don't necessarily feel that they have fulfilled anything with their life. Diddy wants to be mentored by Harry Belafonte. Mr. B talks to T.I., he talks to all these different people. And he says, it is my role, even at 90 years old when I'm tired, to continue to cultivate the next artist. He talks about Paul Robeson being his mentor and always saying artists are the gatekeepers to truth. They are civilization's radical voice. And so if we as activists think we're gonna do it by ourselves, it's not possible.
Yeah.
We need our artists to amplify the work that we're doing on the ground. It's the reason why my son is so critical to our movement. Not only is he a man who is formerly incarcerated, but he's also the person that be spitting some fire, things that I can't do. He puts it in some very eloquent, like, you know, rhyme, and people are moving and grooving to it. And I wish I could do that, but I can't because there's a lane for me.
That's right.
I'm the strategist. I'm the visionary. And my brother is the one that holds us down, that is able to then take our message and amplify it. And so I hope that we also I'm not saying let's have compassion for everybody who's out there rapping. And, you know, I got to say, I want to point something out. When I was younger, I used to listen to Method Man. And I used to work as a 17-year-old at the welfare department. And this woman would be like, why are you listening to that shit? She's like, oh my God, could you understand it? She's like, when I was younger, we listened to disco. And I was like, okay, cool, I listened to that too. And I said, he's talking about cash rules everything around me, cream, get the money, dollar, dollar bill, y'all. I didn't know at the time, at 17, that he was talking about capitalism. But he was. And you know what? We gotta stop. You talking about stopping. We are ageist. We forget that we were once 15, 17, 19, 30, 40, 50, 60. We start saying, oh, that music, I don't understand it. Well, you know what? There's your music, there's my music. Let's make music together, but let's not diss each other.
That's right.
Because the more we create walls and we create these divisions, we're never gonna build collective power. And that's the problem in our communities. We see it firsthand. And so I just kind of want to say that. I think one of the things that I also want to share with all of you, what's next for Justice League NYC is, because of call-in support, we are launching a new campaign called End the War on Children. And this is about stopping the mass incarceration of our children, stopping the school-to-prison pipeline. They came for our brothers, they came for our fathers, they came for our lovers. They ain't taking our children.
That's right.
Linda, a few weeks ago, Darren Sands at BuzzFeed did a piece on the status of Black Lives Matter movement. And it was interesting because, so the article was about the growing pains and the reality of building and infrastructure, things along those lines. I hit him up, I started laughing because when that thing first kicked off, there were a number of people who I hit up and I said, do understand, while you're out there, you better be thinking infrastructure. That's long term. And a lot of folks say, I want to do something, I want to be involved, I want to be active. You heard Tamika talk about sending a son to Morehouse, but somebody got to pay for that.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times we focus on passion, we focus on energy, we focus on, I got a great idea, but not understanding that you can hate on the NAACP all you want to, but they're still here. You can hate on the Urban League all you want to, but they are still here. If you do not have strategy, infrastructure, vision, thinking of the fundraising piece, you can have all the energy in the world, but you're gonna be burnt out in about 18 months. And then people are going, what happened? We were behind you because you didn't focus on infrastructure and planning. Go ahead.
So for some of us on the stage, including me, Tamika and Carmen, we've been around for 20 years, but we're still here. But what I will say is that infrastructure is important to the movement, and a lot of people have enough time to sit around and analyze what we're doing. They write all these think pieces. Everybody got something to say, and I ask them, what are they doing, right? Black Lives Matter is a network, and people don't even know what the Black Lives Matter movement is. It's a network founded by 3 black women who have inspired young people across the country to stand up and be unapologetically black and unapologetically who they are. And though there are chapters who are autonomous around the country who are doing the work that makes sense for them and in the way that it makes sense for them in the places that they are. So if you Black Lives Matter in Chicago, it ain't the same for the Black Lives Matter folks in Durham or in parts of Florida. So the work is happening. And people say, oh, where's the strategy? These Black Lives Matter activists running around these streets and they don't. VisionforBlackLives.com. They have a policy platform, one of the most comprehensive policy platforms that we have ever seen coming out of any community. So the strategies there, they have taken out district attorneys in places like Chicago and in Florida, but people are not given the credit where it's due.
Yep.
And it's oftentimes young black kids, young people of color on these streets that are not getting the institutional support from the people who built the infrastructure.
There you go.
And we also understand what infrastructure looks like. The Women's March now could have left on January 21st and said, we did the largest single-day protest in U.S. history, and we good. And we're going to always have that in our pocket. We don't need to do nothing else after that. But we're now a C4 organization. We're a political advocacy organization.
Hold tight 1 second. Hold on. Explain, folks, the difference between 501c3 and 501c4.
So President Trump's trying to blur the lines, and I'm not even sure I'm that mad at him for that part anyway. But the C4 means that we could do direct lobbying work, and your donation to us is not tax deductible because freedom is not tax deductible. So we are a C4 organization, but we also do have a C3 organization, a Women's March Foundation. So we are building the infrastructure. We're on the search now for an executive director. We are building that. We are doing the fundraiser. We are doing the organizing. So that's on infrastructure building. But I want to talk about movement building for a second, because it's a little different than infrastructure building.
There you go.
The way that the world works, and this country in particular works, is divide and conquer. So they start telling you the Muslims and then the black people. 1/3 of the Muslim community are black people, right? So we're all one thing. We talk about immigration, right? And the black people that we organize with, we're like, that ain't got nothing to do with us. When we think about the Muslim ban, right? The Muslim ban. Everybody heard about the Muslim ban. 2 of those countries are black countries. Somalis and Sudanese are black people.
That's right.
They want to cut TPS, temporary protected status, to Haitians. They're black people, right? Liberians are black people. So oftentimes what they do is they try to make us cut ourselves up into different. So I'm Muslim, so I'm only supposed to work on Muslim issues, but I want to forget the part about me that I'm a daughter of immigrants and I come out of an immigrant community. So we can't let them and let the enemy play the game that they played for a really long time.
And for the immigrant piece, Linda, it extends to Bermuda, Haiti, Bahamas, Jamaica. So we leave that out of it as well. Go ahead.
And exactly. So when we look at also when the program, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the DACA program, which gave some sort of legalization to these 800,000 young people, the perception, if it was up to the media, was that they're all a bunch of Central Americans running around. But actually a very significant portion of them, right, are what we call undocu-black. They are black people, right? There's also a piece of legislation right now that is going to probably pass. It's also going to stop diversity visas, right? So people who are getting what you know as the green card lottery, that's the only way people from Africa get here. They're also stopping all the sibling family petitions, so people who are trying to bring their brother or sister from another country, if they're U.S. citizens, guess what? That's not going to happen anymore. Ask anybody here who's from Nigeria or from Ghana or from any of these African countries. Either you came here on a family-based petition or you came here on the green card lottery, and they're taking that away from us. So the way we're going to win is by understanding that we cannot win alone, and also understanding that our communities have intersecting identities. So we're not just Muslim, we're not just immigrants, we're not just undocumented. You could be actually all of those things at one time. Yeah, that's right. And this is what we in the Women's March were trying to put forth, that we are, and Audre Lorde, for folks who know, said this, and it's very important in the way that I organize. She said, we cannot have a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives. And they create these single issues for us to put us in these boxes, and it is why we don't win. And I'll end by saying this. People will say, yeah, but we won a couple of times here and there. The reason why we don't win is because they always got us pinned up against each other. They always have us in negotiations, and which is why sometimes we do get a little upset with those who are part of organizations with, quote, the infrastructure. Why? Because a lot of the folks with the infrastructure are the ones on the outside being like, don't pay no mind to those young people out here. They're running in these streets. They got no manners, right? When we think about things like the open internet, right? We need the open internet to organize right now. It's how we communicate. It's how we organize. It's how we bring people out into the streets at a time when we have a tool to us. But guess what? There are people with the organizations with the infrastructure that are on the inside. I'm not going to drop names here because it's not my place. But I'll let black folks do that.
Down my lane.
I mean, yeah.
But
there are people who are hanging out with Comcast and some of these organizations who want to monopolize the open internet, which takes away a critical tool from us, because we have known for years that black people have been being killed at the streets of our community by law enforcement. But the only reason we know now, and everybody knows, is because there's videos and there's Twitter, and black people have been able to help us tell those stories on a national level. So I'm with you on the infrastructure, but if infrastructure means that you gain credibility so you have higher access to power that continues to oppress our community, I don't want no infrastructure. I'll be out here running in these streets with no infrastructure.
So here's where I am.
That's my sister
So
right there.
Tamika, I want to go to you next. But follow me here. Here's why I'm focusing on that when I say infrastructure. Because those who are activists, they also have to take vacations.
Yeah.
They can't leave and then the work stops. It also means, how are you creating networks, people around the country? How are you fundraising? How are you building staff as well? What we have seen, and a lot of people don't realize it, there has been massive burnout in the past 8 years. Massive burnout. There are activists who are suffering from tremendous PTSD. So while folks are sitting here going, man, I love what you're doing, they're not understanding the tears and things along those lines. And so we talk about how do you keep the movement going, but you also have to fund the movement. Yeah. You have to fund it. And so I want us to make a thinking along those lines, because when you step out here, you better be thinking about those things, because I'm going to Reverend Yearwood next. We are going to get to questions. So as we are talking about what do you do, you've got to be thinking short-term, medium range, and long-term.
You know, and Carmen mentioned that all of us are volunteers within Justice League, which we are. And the thing about that is we put our own money in. So when we say we're volunteers, that means that we work a job somewhere else or do a speaking engagement or whatever and bring the check back to the organization to figure out how we're going to do the walk or do the march or, you know, whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish. And we just recently, to that end, we just recently paid our own way to get to California for a staff retreat where we sat together for several days to talk about just that, the strategy. I know that some of that burnout does come, Roland, because we're on the street and in the street so much that we're not taking the time to dial it back and go inside and work on how we are going to appeal to our communities. Carmen talked about having my son. We know we need young people to listen to what we're saying because we got to move people, so we have to have that strategy. But we also have to be able to go into major rooms and be able to move money. And that is a difficult piece. Now, here's a real important thing about this, and I know Reverend Yearwood has already said it. And first of all, let me just tell y'all, because I know how black folks is messy. And y'all will go back and tell people Linda said she didn't want infrastructure, and I can't get with that because ain't no infrastructure.
Hey, Tamika, don't worry about it. I got audio recording and video. They can't lie.
Yeah, you know, and that's not the point of what she's saying. What she's basically saying is we have this problem, and this is why I was ready for it to come on down to my side. And I just saw the public advocate of New York City step in this room, Letitia James, my sister. Thank you for coming. And here's the problem. This is real serious. Please don't leave till you get this, because this is serious. So we will come out and say, to Reverend Yearwood's point, we won't take money from certain corporations. We won't support folks who are invested in private prisons or are making their products in private prisons. And we've done that and continue to talk about the 13th Amendment, not just as the documentary, but also the reality of how that documentary plays out in our lives, that the 13th Amendment currently says that if you commit a crime as a black person in America, you can still be considered a slave. So when you go to prison, you are making products on behalf of corporations, and police departments and other institutions. And so why would anybody want to stop over-policing your communities if they need you inside the system so you can make corporations big dollars, right? So this is what Linda's talking about, and this is the problem. Then we have some folks that have major platforms that every year at their chicken dinner, those same corporations that we're talking about, from Walmart to Coca-Cola and all these different organizations, and I think Coca-Cola is doing a real good job, so I'm going to take that back because we're talking about that together right now, Coke. But other organizations, and definitely we know Walmart ain't no good. And you see them plastered on all of the stuff. So what happens is when some of us are organizing saying we won't take money from you, we won't work with you, they go and get the person that's dressed up looking good that our communities may be listening to because the media is also promoting these folks, and they promote them. And then those people go in the room and cut deals that are not in the best interest of our people because they're trying to keep the lights on in their organizations too. Right? So that's what we need to be clear, that it's not that some of these people want to sell us out. It's that if they don't do something, they can't pay the bills either. So what does all of that mean? It means that the Women's March raised, Linda said $4 million. We're going to dispute where $1 million is at, because the last time I checked, it was 3. So somebody got $1 million I don't know nothing about, and I'm going to get down to the bottom of it when we leave here. But between $3 and $4 million was raised, right?
And y'all need to be having that conversation behind closed doors.
And
Somebody going to be like, Linda took $1 million.
yeah.
Go on, Tamika.
No, but seriously, so of the $4 million, she said that she raised the money so she knows. So of the $4 million that was raised, almost all of it came from individual dollars. Right. Why is that important? Individual folk, average people sending, what was the main $25 was the main donation around that area. What scares me is to pull back the layers of how many black people was included in that number. That scares me. I hate to look at the numbers because the data ain't gonna be in our favor. And it isn't, and people will say, well, I didn't do it because it was the white women's thing and blah, blah, blah. Cool, fine. If you white or in this room, don't listen to this. I'm only talking to black people right now. So we'll say that we didn't support it because it was the white ladies' march. Cool. But then I go check with my other brothers and sisters who are in this space doing amazing work. Reverend Kenny Glasgow is in this room right now. Reverend Sharpton's brother, who's in Alabama organizing. And I ask you, are you getting $25 from every black person who says that they believe in the struggle and they want to help uplift the movement? No, he's struggling. We struggle on one side. We got money on the Women's March and no money in the black space where we're working because our people are not willing to sacrifice the hamburger from the same McDonald's that's poisoning our community to give to our causes. So when you ask us what is next and you talk about how we can fund our own movement, we don't need anybody else. This room has enough money right now, and Roland will, because I've seen him do it, take out the collection plate in a room like this.
Oh, I can raise some money.
Yeah, and raise money because we have to be willing to put our money where our mouths are. And I know for a fact that we are not doing that. It's little small steps, and I'm going to talk about one more thing and I'm going to be quiet. It's little small steps like saying, I'm going to make sure that Erica Ford, who's out in Queens, is not trying to figure out how she's going to keep the lights on when she's literally saving children from being shot dead on street corners, our children, and we will not fund it. So now she has to fly, and y'all like to talk about about folks, talk about white folks all the time. White folks ain't this, white folks ain't that. But she flies herself across to everywhere the white folks are to beg other people for the money that we have in our communities because we drive in the Benz and we wearing Louboutins and we got all this stuff in our closets and in our homes. We got every gadget, we got every cell phone, we have everything that we need in our communities, and we won't straighten up our damn backs and take care of our own people.
That's right. That's right.
That's a problem.
That's right.
And I see Sister Claudette sitting here in the front row. I see Sister Claudette everywhere.
Right.
People came to us and they continue to come to us and say they want Linda Carmen and I to denounce Minister Farrakhan. We can't denounce Minister Farrakhan. Because when we look at Minister Farrakhan, the model is right there. This is a free black man who raises money from his own people to go out and tell his truth and our truth. And we don't always agree with Minister Farrakhan. Sometimes I sit at the table with him and say, my brother, my God, don't say that. Please don't say that. But at least one thing I can tell you is that you will not see a corporation plastered anywhere on anything that he's doing, and he's still living very well, so it is possible. And so my last point, and then, because I know Roland will kill me if I don't say
You done
this.
closed 3
I'm
times.
sorry, one more thing. But this is, somebody.
Reverend Barber was disciplined.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But I'm here. Reverend Barber ain't here. But listen, the last thing I'm gonna say is this, and I really don't even need to close. Y'all can skip my time after this. Give it to Jamani Williams. But I'm gonna say this: our numbers are too low when it comes time to turn out in our communities and vote. And
Say that.
and I'm not talking about when it's time for us to even vote for the mayor and the governor. I'm talking about the school board race.
Right.
We are not showing up, and we're complaining that there are no leaders in our community and that the elected officials are not doing anything for us. I promise you they will not move unless they know we ain't got no money. We don't have a lot of money, rather. We don't have a lot of money. But we do have bodies. We have votes. So
Right.
when we talk about how we are going to move the needle forward and what's next, it's simple. It's been the same. It hasn't changed. We have to organize our people's money and our votes in order to ensure that our communities have power. If we don't start with those things, the paralysis of the analysis of what we can do and who ain't right and this one did this and that and the third and what group ain't no good, it is nothing but a waste of time. And our children are dying every moment
Right.
that we have those
ahead.
conversations.
That's right.
All right. I'm going to go on the floor. So here's the deal with questions. Reverend Yearwood, make your point. I need to keep that thing tight. I'm going to go to questions. Here's what's going to happen. Hold up. Put your hands down. Calm down. There are ground rules, okay? The first ground rule is don't touch the damn microphone. I got it, okay? I'm going to start front, middle, back, come back, front, middle, back. Don't try no stuff like I'm a senior citizen, this is my 30th caucus, don't none of that matter, it ain't gonna work, okay? You can be cute, it ain't gonna work, all right? So I'm gonna take those questions. Reverend Yearwood, make your point, tight, right? Then we go into questions. Today is Friday, sermons are for Sunday. I'm taking questions, no sermonettes. Reverend Yearwood, go ahead.
But it's Good Friday though, so I can. We can go with
You're
it.
gonna need Jesus to raise you up in 3 days if you go long. So go ahead.
It's a rough camp. So I just want to say the Hip Hop Caucus is your political organization, and what Linda, what Carmen, what Tamika, what Masan, what everybody is saying to you is that we have to fund our own movements because he who funds you is he who controls you. So I would just want to say this, that I know on the other side, like when we're having an amazing, this is a graduate school PhD conversation. And so what I want to say here is that for some of you might be used to other conversations, that's okay, you'll get it. But for those who are on tune, let me just say this. The first thing is that on the Hip Hop Caucus side, if we had to we do issues, civil and human rights, economic empowerment, Voting is actually our main thing. The Respect My Vote campaign has been amazing. But the thing that has actually helped us to really survive these past 13 years has been our climate work. Now, we're going to do climate work. It's important, but that's where a lot of the money has come to fund this movement for us. And that's the same thing. It's a real conversation. And so for us to then do this, it's important for you to be members of the Hip Hop Caucus. I want to stand here like Sierra Club, whose budget is $100 million a year. Or like NRDC, another green group, which is another $100 million a year. That's $200 million. Or I can be like NWF, which is another $100 million. That's $300 million for 3 groups who pretty much do the same thing. Wouldn't it be powerful if the Hip Hop Caucus had $100 million a year? How much different would this conversation be? So first thing, please, before you leave, please go to hiphopcaucus.org and be a member. Just make sure you sign up so we can have this conversation. That's the first thing. And then the last thing I just want to say is this. Roland is right. I've seen so many young people who have been committing suicide, who are in our movement. And I know at the Hip Hop Caucus, we have started literally, if it's a phone bill, if it's rent, if it's a train ticket, all those things that are so important to help activists. Even here, Key Love, because activists will come here to this conference and they don't know how they're gonna get home. So we just gotta change our mentality as a people and start loving one another.
So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take a question right now. Hold on. At the end of this, I'm gonna have each one give their organizational website where you can donate. But while I'm saying this, and matter of fact, Tamika can attest to this, I was pushing some folks out on Twitter, and then I said, well, I'm gonna push this organization out. They had no donate button on their website. I was like, can you please call them and tell them, damn it, you gotta have something where to give. And so we're gonna do that, and to their point, this is very simple. This is very simple. Out of all organizations on here, all I'm asking, if you can, is for each person sitting in here before you walk out the door to give a minimum of $10. Now just look around. Just look around. Every dollar count, and again, that just gets you started on the process, all right? So you go, what's your question? What's your name? What's your question?
Name is Aaron Myers. Questions are, where do you all find your proper lists of companies that are poisoning our communities so that we won't be supporting them? And also, how would you effectively use the super PAC yourselves?
Got it. I need 2 people to answer that quickly, and then I'm going to the next question.
Can
I say at the middle. Who's going to answer that? So which organization has on their website a list of companies? Go ahead.
So there's a few places that you could look. There's a group called Grab Your Wallet. Is a place that has kind of crowds.
Bracket Wallet.
Grab Your Wallet.
Grab Your Wallet. Got it.
Grab Your Wallet. And folks who are working on Standing Rock created a list of folks who profit off of the pipelines across the country. So NoDAPL.com.
No DAPL.
Yeah, no DAPL. So those are, oftentimes you'll see an overlap between the same corporations who profit off of prisons, who profit off of pipelines, and it's all, you
Got it.
already know.
Color of Change.
Color of Change also.
Colorofchange.org. All right.
I want to
Go.
add on to that. Also, you can also listen to any artist that's telling your kids to take dope or kill each other or making them think that jail is cool, or telling them to raping women or doing all type of negative things. You got to also stop supporting those artists that do that too.
Absolutely. Question?
First off, my name is Barry Edwards, and I go to Howard University. I'm a junior elementary education major. So, with that being said, what do y'all have any platforms or anything to advance people of color to be teachers? Because only 2% of black males are teachers in education. And the fact that we need like some type of scholarship program, anything to help fund people of color to be teachers. We need to get rid of these attitudes of, oh, you know, be a businessman, don't be a teacher. Okay, but now we go, and I go into these schools, and there are teachers that don't look like us.
All right. But hold up, before you say that, be a businessman, don't be a teacher. One of the reasons why I support charter schools, because we can run our own schools and control the money and control the education. You can say not all you want to, but guess what? Marva Collins, one of the baddest sisters, she had her own school. All I'm saying is, plus when you run your own school, you pick who the teachers are. Who wants to have that? Who wants to answer that? No, you ask your question. Sit down. No, you can't do a comment too. You gotta get all out at one time. All right, who wants to? So anybody wants?
I just wanna say
any organizations that are assisting making this happen?
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, hiphopcaucus.org. I agree with you. We actually have a thing on HBCUs where we're going around having these discussions, and so I went to Howard as well. So hey, HU. And so definitely we need to continue having that conversation. It's a deeper conversation, and I actually hear what Roland is saying as well. So we need to have a real conversation about education in our community from pre-K all the way through graduate school.
I would just say I think folks should look up Brittany Packnett on social media and check her out. DM her about that, because I'm sure she works for Teach for America and other organizations that do that type of work. So you should speak to her, Brittany Packnett.
Question?
Hello, everyone. I'm William Murray. I'm the president of the Millionaire Mastermind Institute, which is an institute to help people build and grow businesses. I'm just moving my institute from Laurel, Maryland to Southeast D.C., where we're going to start putting together programs. I've got the top educators in the country under my institute, and we're going to start doing classes. They're free. Most of them are free. How can we get connected with you so we can help build this larger, so we can start teaching our community to stop looking for a job and create one?
All right. So the first thing is, every single person here is on social media. Two, give the websites. Dr. Yearwood, your website.
hiphopcaucus.org. hiphopcaucus.org.
Carmen.
Gatheringforjustice.org. Gatheringforjustice.org.
Wes.
A lot of you ladies know Raheem as the Love King, but he has an organization called Love Life Foundation, where we send 3 kids a year. We give them scholarships to go to college and pay for their books, and that's lovelife.org.
We covered? Come on. Got to move. Question?
A quick question. My name is Catherine Harris, and I just finished writing a book proposal on the Women's March and Trump. I would like to interview you sisters, and I would like to also be a participant at the Women's March Conference in Detroit. And I already have my plane ticket, so you don't have to worry about paying for that.
All right. Got it. This side over here. Yeah, and real tall. Come on. She was quicker.
Can we get the dates for the Women's March?
October 29th.
October 27th to the 29th.
27th to 29th.
And our emails are just our first names at womensmarch.com. Linda at womensmarch.com, Tamika at Women's March, Carmen at Women's March, Bob at Women's March.
Hold up. No, it's black. Spell Tamika.
It's Women's Convention.
K-A. It's with a K. Tamika with a K.
All right, some people started off with a K. Tamika. What's your question?
Hi, my name is Tiffany Blakemore. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and my question is regarding those of us millennials who are recent graduates within the last 5 years. Some of us are working for maybe some corporations that might be on these lists. Just practically, what should we do? Do we quit our jobs? Do we, what?
I got a great answer for that.
We got you. Finish your question.
Aside from, the standard with regards to, supporting the organizations that you guys have discussed, financially standing up for justice, et cetera, as far as business goes, what would you recommend?
All right, so the first thing, the first thing is, this is where research is important. The reason there was a divestment campaign in South Africa is because of the Polaroid revolutionary workers.
Yeah.
two African Americans, Ken Williams and Carol Hunter, who later became Carol Hunter Williams. They saw that Polaroid made the pass books where black folks had to show their ID. They led the effort to get Polaroid to stop producing that. Polaroid, look, went after them. Carolyn was 26. Her mama said, baby, you were a chemistry major. What are you doing? You got a nice little job. She said, but mama, this isn't too important. The reason they were on the divestment period before the Congressional Black Caucus was. Ron Dellums, when Mandela died, was on my show, said they met with them. That's how they found out about this. So they started. They were on the inside. When Intel announced a $300 million initiative for inclusion, it was a sister at Intel who was on the inside making it happen. And so I said earlier, inside-outside game. We don't need you to leave. We need you to be revolutionary on the inside. And so that's what needs to happen. And so someone can speak to that, but that's what's critically important, because people on the inside have information we don't have. And they pass stuff to us to say when they can't say it in a meeting, and then we say it and they go, how y'all know? And you just look like you know what the hell we're talking about. So that's how that thing works. Anybody else want to share?
That's exactly what I was going to say. And I'm sure that, thank you for that question, which is a vulnerable question to ask in this type of space, but I'm sure there are other people in this room who probably wonder the same thing. And so Roland's points are all correct. And I just wanted to say why that is so important. For some of us who criminal justice reform is our major issue, right? Like, you know, obviously we heard about DACA and the DAPL list and other lists that are out. But it is very hard to be able to get the right list that tells you who's invested in private prisons or who has their products being made out of private prisons. The same thing with the NRA. They have the information so buried, you can't even find out who their sponsors are unless you sit up at their convention, because they don't publicize it, knowing that their corporations could become a target. So that's why what he's saying is so important, because there's no way for us to know unless there are a few good men and women and folks who don't identify as either, who are inside of these organizations or these companies that are willing to bring us the information. But you actually have to know that what you're looking for. And so that's the purpose of sitting in this room, is that at least you understand we're looking for corporations that are specifically invested in private prisons right now, and we don't know who all of them are.
And you can help fund the movement with that same job.
You could also, one of the things I want to add is you could also change the culture from within.
Precisely.
So previously, when I was doing alternatives to incarceration, I was recruited into the probation department to do system accountability from within. And I was able to open the doors for the community to actually come in and actually receive a lot of the funding and change the culture. So there's so many, we play what's called the inside-outside game. Right, using a multi-pronged approach. You have to go in, you have to allow people to also be in there with you so that you could change the culture from within.
Question?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Antonisha Harris. Thank you to the panel and for everyone else being here. What I like to do is just kind of encourage people. We're always talking about what are the solutions. Within my family, people are very poor and not very educated. This year, I said, this is enough of this. I said I'm going to offer classes on how to repair credit, and let's see who will come. I personally invited family members to come. It was casual. I thought 12 people would come. 27 people showed up.
That's right.
People have been asking me, how do you get grants, how you do this? And I said, it's in a book. You can Google it. For some reason, they don't. And so I invited people to come by and let's talk about getting grants. And again, you think 7 people are coming, 28 people come, and maybe 12 people follow through. What I like for some of us folks who have skills that are additional, start within your family. Open up the door. I don't chase people. I have information. If you want it, I will give it to you. I don't play with people. Don't call me if you're playing. And they're responding. I mean, I'm seeing like such a difference in my family, and I've become what is somewhat of a resource to them. And sometimes I'm simply walking people into buildings. This is a community college. You can do this. Thousands of people do this. And they're starting to be motivated, and they're making me very proud. So I would say for the people here, everyone who's asking, what can I do? Start with the people around you. Start small. Do a PowerPoint. Invite them in. And definitely donate. It is so important to donate, even small amounts, to people that are doing hard work.
Plus, if you help your family with your credit, they ain't got to ask you for no loan. I understand, baby.
They take me to dinner when I go home now.
I understand.
Hey, Roland,
he
Roland,
left. Come on, baby.
Roland, on that,
Go ahead. Come
on
on.
that last person, thank you for that on the family. But I just want to say to the sister, I just want to make sure something. I don't want to leave something that I kind of heard and I want to reflect on that. Yes, there is a need for us to have spooks by the door. That's critical for any movement, right? That's important, and we need to have that kind of strategy inside, outside process. So, but I also want to say this, because I want to make sure, if you are in a place, though, where you're feeling yourself becoming spiritually dead, because you're doing something, you're working for Monsanto, you're working for a company that you know is giving our people the wrong thing, and you just can't be in that environment, then you may have to be a whistleblower or get out. So I just want to make sure that you know that. So I want to make sure that folks who just think that we need you to fund the movement, no, I need you to be alive. I need you to be whole. I need you to be a whole person. So yes, if you're blessed to be at a law firm or to be at some chemical pharmaceutical company or to be working for, or to be a security officer or a PO, or that's important. To be in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party or whatever party it is, to be in that information, that's important. But I don't want you to be there if you're dying and if you're not connected. So I just wanted to say that, Roland, for that last sister.
Question.
Okay.
Put your hands down. I got this. Put it behind your back. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry. Thank the panelists for all the information that you've given us today. My name is Vita Brown. I am a retired university professor, and I taught developmental psychology, child psychology. And I paid a real hefty price. I got my doctorate at University of Florida. They taught us research and grant writing. I don't shop at Walmart, and I don't fool with McDonald's, and companies like that some of you have mentioned. But I found that those companies offer community grants, and being a grant writer, in my community, I found that there's a paucity of literacy, a lot of illiteracy in my community. And I've been able to get grants from some of these organizations to develop family literacy projects, parent training projects that have helped parents go back and get GEDs and things like that. Is that bad money? I mean, I don't shop there, but I do take advantage of the money that they offer for our community.
Who wants to answer that? Thanks a lot.
I think
Bruh.
I think that's
Bruh,
I think
got
that's
you.
the Robin Hood method.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, sorry.
Hold on 1 second. I got this. But I can't have people coming up. No, take a seat. Take a seat. No, go back to where you were, or I ain't gonna find you. You were up front. Go back to your seat. I got it. Answer the question. I'm gonna go over here, then I'm coming. I got it, bro. I got it. Go ahead.
I mean, this is my own personal opinion and how I think about these things. It's the Robin Hood method. You take the enemy's money and you use it for good, as long as you ain't putting money back in those corporations. So if you're taking the money and putting it into the communities that deserve it and where you need to uplift people, I don't see a problem with that, just as long as you ain't shopping there later. That's how I look at it.
Okay. Question.
Yes, so to put some context to it, my name is Frank Whitfield. I'm the president of the Lorain County Urban League, and I know we talked about some of those.
Where is that?
In Ohio, just west of Cleveland. So I got involved in the Urban League because I was doing grassroots community organizing and was pretty frustrated with some of the civil rights organizations, but as opposed to screaming from the outside, I applied for the job. And I didn't get it at first, and I fought and I got the job. And now I work with grassroots community organizers and lend them my infrastructure so they can do the work in the community. So I will say to you that there are leaders within the historical civil rights movement who will lend that infrastructure so you ain't running around trying to fill out paperwork and keep up with that $1 million in the bookkeeping and all that stuff. We're willing to lend our infrastructure to the movement because without y'all, we don't have a meeting. So it's that inside-outside game. So, and I'm sure other colleagues within the movement are the same. So please reach out, and we definitely will be willing to connect.
Well, just like with, it's just like It's just like what Sister Levy Pounds did in Minneapolis. They were complaining about the local NAACP, so they joined, they ran, they took over the whole chapter. She became president. That's how you do it. Oh, come on, bro. Come on.
That better be a damn good question. You better be profound.
Yo, this better be a damn good question. Come on.
Okay, how you doing today, sir?
You better ask the question.
All right. Okay, here's my question. Whew.
Bro, really? You've been waiting for 30 minutes. You better come on. Come on.
Okay, sir. So I heard everything people were saying today so far. And my question is, can we establish a single one organization? Because, see, there's so many organizations. And that's where I think a lot of the confusion comes from. So if we establish one single organization with a central information hub, because information is key, and the information that is being given to the people is coming from the same people who are oppressing and doing wrong, in my opinion.
Okay. Hold up. I got the question. Once, two, information is not all coming from them, because you have sources like mine where I get mine from mine. So what I'm saying is, it's not always coming from somebody else. So I got the first part of your question. Who wants to answer that in terms of one organization? But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that one organization is realistic. Not because people organize in different ways. People have different passions, different levels, different places where they are. I think the issue is not so much one organization, it's one agenda.
Yep.
And I think that's more so what we need to be focused on.
And one of the other reasons why you also have multiple organizations, also why you have multiple lanes. So there's some people who are doing the same work, but they have different interests.
That's right.
Because it's because you got to connect the dots, the different tentacles to it. So
That's right.
what's your question? I got it. Breathe.
First, my name is Lakeisha Davis Small. I'm from the historical Shaw community here in Washington, D.C. And thank you. And Wes, me and you performed Cameron's together, and Raheem. But my question is, I've started a movement. I work for the Federal Aviation Administration, and every morning I wake up, I've been there 21 years. In my heart of hearts, I'm ready to quit too. I want to go because I have a movement inside of me, and it's called Stop Stealing Our Souls, putting an end to sex exploitation. So I have people at the table. I have, some head people at the table. I have Elijah Muhammad's granddaughter, have co-pastor Susie Owens, just a lot of people at the table. But what do I do now? Like, we had one meeting. We have another meeting coming. I just need to know what to do. And I talked to you, Tamika, and we need to get together. But I'm ready to do this. FAA, I understand people, want to retire and get there 30 years, but not me. Like, I have something to do, and I don't want to step out of God's will, but He gonna make a way for me, and I'm not doing 30.
Okay. All right. Who wants to, Carmen or Linda or Reverend Uric? Go ahead.
Yeah, you're in D.C., correct? Do you have a space to operate from? No. I get that. But do you have a space? So I'm gonna offer you. So at Hip Hop Caucus, we have an office in D.C. So I'm gonna put you in contact with Lisa Fager. So when you have your meetings, you've now got a space to work from at a conference room. So I could do that. And then also in that space, hopefully in that space, there could be some group working and mentoring in that process.
Question?
Hello, my name is Horace Williams. First thing I'd like to say is I am extremely inspired by this panel today. So my heart's racing, but it's because you can feel all the power on that stage. The next thing is that I'm actually a tech executive that left to go into the civic space.
That's right.
So for people who are looking for ways to get engaged, it's not all the same path. So for me, I knew that the way I help marketers make money, I could help my community understand the complexities of local government. So my question is, for someone like me, I have an early stage, high quality product that is focused on helping people engage local elected officials with context and reason. What stage is a good enough stage to come to you all and say, I need your help?
Okay, you said a product. What's the product? Is it a site? Is it an app? What is it?
Application and a technology platform. So when we talk about a data source, we gather jurisdiction boundaries from the very local level all the way to the federal level. We tie them to elected officials. We allow you to identify your location and pull every single person who represents you, how to contact them, and that's day one.
Very simple. The answer is now.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
So what you should do is connect with them when it's over. Linda's already given the emails for her, Carmen, and Tamika. And then, so that's Linda, Carmen, Tamika at womensmarch.com. And then you can reach Wes, my son, and Reverend Yearwood. And then I will also get with Congressman Carson's staff. Cool?
Yes, sir.
Now.
I just want to say
Go
something.
ahead.
Sorry. There's we don't expect everybody to quit their day job and become an activist. I want to make that very clear because we need all of you in the movement to be where you're at. The way in which we come together in Justice League NYC, my son is a hip hop artist. Tamika's a communications director. There are people who are experts in criminal justice, people who are formerly incarcerated, people who are film directors, right? I need people who are lawyers, who can do fund development, who know how to do web design, because we don't know how to do that. So we need you to be in your lane and bring your skill set to the cause. You don't necessarily need to become a full-time activist. A lot of us, like we said, we had our full-time jobs. We do what we love, our passion on the weekends or at night, just like you watch, whatever you do on the weekend and you go dancing at night, whatever you do. What I'm saying is whatever you love to do, what is your skill set? What tugs at your heart? Get involved with an organization that is doing that and lend your skill to that organization.
We literally
we welcome it at the Gathering for Justice. Again, gatheringforjustice.org.
We literally have 2 minutes, so quick question, then quick answer. I got it.
My name is Winter. I'm 16 years old from California.
Woo, woo.
And thank you.
Go Cali.
Linda mentioned the divisiveness on the way many approach social activism in terms of intersectionality, and I was wondering, how do you guys divide and focus your time and energy into various intersections, and how do you decide your focus? And because there's so many issues and they're so widespread.
All right, who wants that?
So I'll start. First, I want to say to the sister, because I think she asked a really important question, the sister that talked about how she worked at the Federal Aviation. People got to start small. People look at the Women's March or they look at some things that happen. They're like, I can't do that. I don't got time for that. How do I also get and mobilize all these people? We started 20 years ago with 5 people. Okay, then we end up with 5 million. So it's about one-on-one organizing. There is a tool called one-on-one. You go and build relationships and deep transformative ones, one person at a time. It's not about trying to convince 5,000 people of something. It's about convincing one individual at a time. To your point about intersectionality and how do we prioritize by bringing the movement leaders together. So when we're sitting at a table, we got the environmental justice people, we got the reproductive rights, the immigrant rights, the racial justice people, and we have a conversation. What pieces of legislation do they have on the table? Oftentimes what happens with pieces of legislation, there'll be something about immigration reform, but there'll be some clause about health care or something. So we have a conversation, we strategize, we say, don't throw us under the bus and we won't throw you under the bus. Here's our talking points, here's your talking points. So when we start going in on the inside with all the people in power, they're like, wait a minute, these people are all having the same conversation. They look united, they look coordinated. So the powers that be can't divide us in those moments. And what we do also is rapid response. Like right now we have DACA got rescinded. We can't be like, sorry, you number 7 on the list because that's how we organized it. You got to reprioritize the people that are the most hurt at the moment, the people that are the most devastated at the moment. So it's about strategy, it's about being fluid, it's about being flexible. But the last thing I'll say about infrastructure. Infrastructure is not about building organizations, it's about infrastructure for the movement. The leaders on the front lines are in trouble, and we're in danger, and people are trying to take us down, and they're criminalizing us. They're saying we're criminals. They're using our religions to criminalize us. They're using our race. They're using the fact that we work with formerly incarcerated people who made mistakes and deserve second chances and deserve to be in these movements. They're using things against us. And what we need is our people to stand up for us. Don't let the white man and the white supremacists take us down, because that's what they're doing. Every single day there are headlines about our movements and the work that we're doing. And if our own people are not standing up for us and saying that is false, that is fake news, don't let that distract you from the real work that's happening. When they focus on the 3 guys that threw a glass bottle into a store, but then they don't focus on the thousands of people who are peacefully protesting out in these streets, that is on us to stand up for the people that are putting themselves on the front line. That also means our security. Who pays for our security in the movement?
Right.
And also when we talk about grant writing and folks in the room that may be part of philanthropy, I don't got time to write a grant proposal. I'm looking for the Harry Belafontes of the movement. I go to the Muslim community, I'm looking for my Harry Belafontes. I'm funded by my people. That's why I say what I want, when I want to say it, do what I want, go where I go. You know why? Because nobody controls me. And that's the kind of movement leaders we need, people who are not controlled by people based on money.
All right, folks, real quick here. So if you got pen and pad, fine. If you got your phones, pull those out. I'm about to give you some information. Again, Wes, give the website where people can connect with you and Raheem and also give.
So you can keep up with Raheem and I on all platforms as at the Crossroads. That's Crossroads, CROSSRODESES 368. And then the organization and his foundation is lovelifedc.org. So it's Love Life Foundation.
Tamika?
So people can find us at the Gathering for Justice, as Carmen has already said. Please donate. We need you to donate today, like now, right now, before you leave, to thegatheringforjustice.org. Please do not worry about whether or not someone else is giving and trying to wait for critical mass.
That's right.
Just give yourself today, now. Like right now, no. So thegatheringforjustice.org. But also you can find out more information about our conference and other things that the Women's March is doing at womensmarch.com.
Womensconvention.com for the convention.
Womensconvention.com. Yes. But you can also go to see, this is the perfectionist in me. If you go to womensmarch.com, there's also a link there for the Women's Convention. Thank you very much, ladies.
Yes, there is.
My son.
We didn't speak about this, but I work with an organization called Credit Concepts, in which I am personally signing up formerly incarcerated individuals to get their credit fixed, and we take donations.
Tell them that Credit Concepts
creditconcept.com start with a K. Concept starts with a K.
K Concepts.
But my website, you can go to donate on my website.
KREDITKONCEPTS.com.
Yes. No. But my website is www.iworkforthepeople.com. You can go directly to my
go to
page.
iworkforthepeople.com.
Yes.
Got it. Carmen.
Gatheringforjustice.org. GATHERINGFORJUSTICE.org. And also go to, if you want to attend the Women's Convention, it's at womensconvention.com.
Lord. Reverend Yearwood.
Please go to hiphopcaucus.org, hiphopcaucus.org. There are now 30 hip-hop caucuses in 30 different cities, so you can find your cities to have these meetings that we need to have in your community. And then also today, please go to People's Climate Music. That's peoplesclimatemusic.com, and please download Here Come the Sun by Antonique Smith and Jeremiah. That's
Linda?
So my sister's already said the websites that I'm a part of and the groups I'm a part of, but if you're ever really frustrated and you want to talk directly to the white supremacists, go into my Twitter mentions. Have a great time. Put out some frustrations and speak directly to them. The Make America Great people, they're right on my Twitter. They love it every day, every morning, every night.
All right, folks. So let me close this out. I opened this with the panelists who were here last year. What did you accomplish in the last 364 days? I will say it again. It is a waste for panelists or for you to come to this and then not take this and do something with it. So take this down. I want you to do what I call a personal annual report. So 50 weeks from now, I want you to go to Congressman Carson's website, www.carson.house.gov, and share with his folks what you have done in the last year. So when we come next year, we will share some of that. This person here, this person here, this person in this city, this person in this city, because that inspires other folks to say, wow, some folks started something or joined something when they actually left here. And so that's what I want you to do. Last thing, we gave you the websites. We want you to give. I'm asking a minimum of $10, okay? It's tax deductible. You can write this off. And we have to fund it because we talk about HBCUs, but only 5% of Florida A&M graduates give to Florida A&M. Only 9% of Wilberforce graduates give to Wilberforce. Only 10% of Howard University's undergraduate degree folks give to Howard University. When I say give, I don't mean 1,000 or 100. That's literally a nickel. That means 95% of the people you see who are wearing Florida A&M hats, letters, and jackets do not give to their own university. If we don't fund it, then it's not going to happen. We can fund it ourselves. The last thing is this here. Of course, on TV One every day at 7 a.m., we recorded the whole session, audio and video. I'm going to have this entire audio on my podcast, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Download it so you can have the whole session. If you forgot something, you can share it as well. We'll have that for you, and then look for this on the show next week. I appreciate Congressman Carson. Thank you so very much for asking me to moderate this. Give it up for our panel, please. Raheem Devon, Wes, Carmen, Tamika, my son, Linda.
Don't leave
my
yet.
son, I got it, my son.
They walking
No, they gonna stop.
Okay.
My son is gonna close this thing out with a word.
Listen. The new trend is stay woke. They say stay woke, but are they woke? Or do they play woke as they sleep? Are they the same folk that say, oh, what happened to Philando Castile was wrong, but then won't go out into these streets? Or they tweet and they weep about violence by police every time they see a little girl or a boy shot, but then they get silent every time we speak about a boycott. Because that girl or that boy's not their kin. So they go back to sleep until another little boy or girl is shot again, and then they hashtag stay woke. But they won't donate to the movement, so the freedom fighters stay broke. But they hope that we get equal rights. But I hope that y'all know that we're going to need to fight, because hope ain't never win no war. I mean, Jay-Z album was dope, but a lot of us was woke way before 444. Before Kendrick pimped the butterfly, I limped 200-something miles for justice. I was in Baltimore with Freddie Gray, protested in front of precinct alone for over 30 days before it was the end thing. So I'm glad they woke a lot of y'all up, but I was woke as fuck before it was trending. So are they pretending to blend in with the crowd, or they really intending to get in this fight from now? Because I mean, everybody got a verse about Trayvon and how it's wrong that the police is shooting us. But then every other trap is about Molly's in the trap and a whole bunch of stupid stuff. I mean, just look at the Surf the Net. They say that they woke, but a lot of them is sleepwalking, because they ain't talking about nothing but Molly's and Percocets. I ain't here to judge, because ain't none of us perfect yet, but how the hell you gonna stay woke on Molly and Percocet? Do you get it? How the hell you gonna stay woke on Molly and Percocet? But if you really woke, then I applaud you. Because you was there and I saw you when they ignored you. You gave what you could afford to. And when they called you, you came. Rain, sleet, snow, or rain, you made a sacrifice. Because you gave Eric Garner, because you know his mother, you couldn't give her back his life. Because you know if you don't do nothing, you can't get nothing. So if you say no justice, no peace, and we don't get no justice, but they get peace, that means we was bluffing. So if we see what happened to Colin Kaepernick and he sit on TV and talk about the injustice that happened to us, that's like watching what happened to Rosa Parks, then getting back on the back of the bus. Now, if you really stand, then I want all of y'all to raise your right hand. I'm going to end it with this. The easiest way for injustice to prosper is for good people to do nothing. Amen.
See y'all next year.